you gonna do? Peace now or never.
Hello.
Congratulations. This is a really tough movie to watch.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it is, but hopefully productively tough.
It is, because at least for me, I'm still processing everything because I didn't know about Nickel Boys, about the Nickel Academy. And I wonder, what was your first feeling when you read the book and you had this conversation with Colson Whitehead?
One of the first feelings I had was, I think, like most, kind of shock. It's like shocking but not surprising. You know, one of those things where you're like, oh, of course that would be the case. It's like we have alligators in this film, and one of the reasons why the alligators are in there is because a couple years ago, way before Nickel Boys, I was doing research, and you know, you find out that young black children were used as alligator bait in the historic South, and literally they would steal children, they would put them on the swamp shores, the alligators would come out, and then they could capture the alligators for food and for their skin. And sometimes they would eat the kids, sometimes they wouldn't, and it didn't matter. And you're just like, huh. But then you're like, oh, of course, because they weren't human. So if you're not human, then it doesn't matter, but also. So shocked, but not surprised.
One of the beautiful things that it makes me almost cry, it was at the beginning of the movie, because I love how you use the POV shot. And I would love to talk about that. It's when, because it happened to me, I used to approach my mom from my point of view, from my level of a kid, to see if she was still breathing.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to feel safe. That made, because my mom passed many years ago, but it brought me back to that thing, to that moment. So it's because I used to do it very often. My mom was a single mom and everything. It was my protection. And when you use that, because you put the camera at the level of a kid, and you focus so much in hands, in gestures, and that really touched me. I have to say it. And I want to know why first using that first person view, and at first at the movie you focus so much in gestures, in hands, in feet. You're a cinematographer, so you are the expert in this, man.
Well, you know, it's the same reason why it connected with you. It's like, that's also my life. Like, it's the book was a natural adaptation for me because I see myself as both Elwood and Turner. And I also used to see if my mom was breathing. Yeah, it's just such a natural, it's almost the thing I'm most familiar with, you know? The way in which we use the camera popularly is not the way that we see the world. It's the way that we fantasize about seeing others. And so in thinking about taking a point of view as literal as possible, try to bring it closer to what it looks like for the young kid to grow up and see the world.
When you do that and then you trick us, when you change characters with POV. With David, Ellsworth Turner, at the end of the movie, you use floating behind him. So that's not coincidence. So I want to know why you did that. Why floating with him? And then with the other ones, you made as a first person, probably because we know what happened, and we're seeing him as a liar of pretending to be someone else that he loved. And it's just so many for me that I would love to. That explanation stays with me. Honestly.
Yeah, there's so many layers to the self, right? And what we consider to be ourselves, and who we consider to be others, and it's interesting if we're going to start with the idea of having the camera inside of the body as real point of view, and that's your true self, then what happens when you get separated from yourself, when you lose part of yourself? Elwood became part of Turner, and then when Elwood was shot, he's no longer part of him. And so that was a way for us to think about disassociation, and a way to think about what happens when you can't even be alone with yourself, you know?
So many people, before I watch a movie, they say you have to watch it. It's really good. It's tough. And a lot of good feedback. And one of those things that I went already like all hyped to watch it. I didn't expect anything because I didn't know. I didn't read anything about the movie. I didn't watch trailers. I just wanted to be involved in your movie, and you did it. Because I felt that I was watching a documentary, even though you use documentary footage. I know your first movie, it was hell. It's been 6 years, but why adding documentary footage to all this.
Yeah.
And I want to say there's a beautiful sequence that is probably the more violent one when they lock down the White House, and with every whiplash, you put something.
Yeah.
Something, a face, but a blurred face.
Yeah.
That's poetic, brother. Like that's a poem. And oh, go ahead.
No,
I'm excited.
Thank you. I can tell. You're like making me hype too. I want to get up and move, but we know the camera won't get me if I jump around. Yeah, adding documentary footage to the film allows for the film to be grounded in reality, right? Like when we watch dramatic films, while they are, supposed to be emotional, and not all of them are based on true stories. Like the source material is so devastating. Like this is like there are hundreds of boys who are not accounted for that disappeared, and coming across some of their images seemed like one way to visually add them to the conversation, to pay homage to whatever likeness we have, but then also to not let the viewer get lost in cinema fantasy, to not think that what they were seeing wasn't something that had happened and something that could happen again.
You use the camera as your pen, and I think that's one of the beautiful stuff about your film. There's a sequence in the bar when P and David characters Turner, they start talking. You don't move the camera. You leave the camera so they can interact. What it created for us is like we don't know what's going on. I don't know who the guy is. Like he didn't know also that he escaped. He forgot. He blocked that part.
Yeah.
And then we get to know that. Why making that decision? You wanted to create that sense of let the audience to figure it out by itself without moving the camera.
Yeah, I think we wanted to just have a sense of mystery and ambiguity, and like in real life when you come across someone from your childhood and you kind of remember them, they kind of remember you. They didn't play an important part, a too large of a part in your life, but they were definitely, you guys shared experiences. There's just like so much tension, something that's indescribable between you two. And we didn't want to make that moment in time to be overly defining, but yet we wanted it to also be large as possible. So we wanted there to be mystery and some sort of realism, which is like, you're in those conversations and sometimes it almost feels like you're watching yourself have them because everything you say is so fraught. You're like, how much do they remember? Or what do I, like, is this? So we kind of played with those ideas.
Going back to the beginning, also I noticed that you didn't use dialogues. There's no conversation. You're just living, the act of living. The music helps a lot. How was that part composing music to try to create that feeling of the beginning, just using your camera, the hands, the gestures, and music?
If you look back on your life and we think back on memories, like I would say that most of it doesn't involve dialogue. Most of it is
feelings.
Yeah, feelings, exactly. Feelings and impressions.
How do you felt back then?
Yeah.
And you hear a song and it take you to that moment.
You're hitting the nail on the head, so they say. We wanted to create a sort of tapestry of emotion and sense for when Elwood was a child, and give you a sense of what were moments that added to his development, but not tell you what they were, allow you to see if you could feel them for yourself. Yeah, and in that sense, you get what you saw.
My last question is, what do you expect the audience take away from your movie, from this project?
I hope that the audience has some sort of body experience. They feel like they witnessed something, or that they were a part of something, or that, maybe they shed some skin, or maybe some space opened up inside of them. I'd like for them to have an experience. Yeah.
And I had it for sure. Thank you so much, brother.
No,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Great
nice
movie.
You.
I watched the movie yesterday, and it's something that is dragging with me still, the feeling at the end. And I truly love your character because you are kind of that buffer of this kid. He wants more. And I want to know, were you familiar about the story and the book before you were involved in the project?
I was, familiar as I just was, because it was a book that was being talked about, and it's, Colson Whitehead, and it won, awards. So I had a superficial knowledge of it, but I had not read the book. So that was pretty much the limit of my knowledge about it.
How do you build your character? You build it with the director, read the script, and going back to take some tips. How do you build this beautiful woman? For me, so beautiful because it reminds me of my mother, and in so
Mm,
many things.
mhm,
Because she could speak with her sight, like just looking at me, and even
mhm.
when I was in trouble, like she just gave me the looks. The,
Right.
and to me, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing about your character.
Yeah, that the unsaid said,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah. I have had a wonderful director in Ramell Ross.
Mhm.
And he we talked a lot about who Hattie should be, who Hattie not necessarily who Hattie should be, but who she shouldn't be,
Yeah.
or how we shouldn't collapse into kind of conventional ways that you could approach a woman like her, you know, or we make these assumptions about someone like Hattie, but when we think about it, they're not that way at all. So I try to find that the unsaid said in playing someone like her. Yeah.
Do do you feel there's any connection with your character with Isabel in Origins? Because I feel it's a very deep connection because it's a book. This book is really deep. It's really heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole story. I didn't know I live in Florida. I live in Miami, and it just make me curious. I spend the whole day reading about it. And do you feel there's any connection with Isabel in your movie with Origins?
Interesting.
Because she's doing research. She's doing research. She's trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure it
Mm-hmm.
out something. And
Yeah.
I feel this movie is
Yeah.
also it's like a claim of "Oh, look, this happened. This is violence to our kids, and
Yeah.
nobody did anything. It's like Isabel, nobody pay attention to her either.
Yeah. Yeah, and Miss Wilkerson at this moment is someone that we need to listen to as we uphold caste systems the caste system in this country. Yeah, you're right. Like both of them are kind of trying to solve this mystery of what has happened to our children,
Yeah.
because of this culture, because of the caste system here in America. So yeah, they are. Both of them are on that path. Very different women, but I think similar in that they are seeking something, seeking in Isabel's case the truth,
Mhm.
and in Hattie's case seeking justice and liberation for her grandson.
Right now, I think this movie just landed in a perfect time because, about politics, which we have a new president and everything happened. What do you expect that the audience take away from this movie? Do you expect that they go back and read the book, and it just open some other conversation? Because we have now every year stories about Black America that we very few people hear before. And Nickel Boys for me is something new, and now I'm so intrigued about this. And it was talked back then, and nobody paid attention to it. But now that we have this story, I guess we can go back and do something.
I think that's what I want. That's what I want. And I mean, it's important to say that it wasn't just black children who were brutalized at the Dozier school.
Mhm.
There were white children as well at that school. And I think that it's important, first of all, and what I want people to take away is the motivation to find out more about this school, but also find out more about other schools, because this just didn't happen at the Dozier School. It happened at other reform schools around the country, and I mean it's similar to what happened in Ireland with pregnant mothers, or
Mhm.
children that were abandoned, mothers, women, girls particularly, who were abandoned by their mothers and fathers because they were pregnant, or did something that was unacceptable, and they went to these schools, right? And they were mistreated and violated there. So this is not something that just happens to black children. It happens to all children. But if it only happened to black children, we should care and we
Yeah.
should know about it. The knowledge of it is the hope that all of us will do something about it. The reality is those schools are really just support systems for the injustice
Mhm.
system.
Watching the movie, I felt that I was watching a documentary, and if
Mm,
because the feeling, because I was a teenager, I was never in trouble like that, but they just behaving as a teenager, and then they didn't understand many things that happened to them because the rules, because everything that was surrounding them. What do you feel while you shooting the movie? Did you were learning something that you didn't know before? Not just about the story, it's about feelings and how
Mhm.
it feels be surrounded by violence, by do you know what happened, but we didn't do anything.
I think I want to say something about what you said. I think it's a way that we have to, as a country, as a society, undo this habit or unlearn this habit of criminalizing children for being children, criminalizing boyhood, criminalizing girlhood that is a result of just being a child and doing stupid stuff, or how we just disapprove of things so we think someone should be put away because we don't want to deal with it. Yeah, and I'm in terms of what I learned. Yeah, I think that in any, like you mentioned, origin, I didn't know about the caste system in this country, you know? I didn't have the language for this very huge idea that Isabel Wilkerson is offering with this book that's not new. We know that it's happening in other countries, in India. It's not new, but we didn't associate it with what happens here. So anytime that I get a chance to work on something that is this it's new history, right? So what I mean by that, it ain't new, it's history, but it's new to us.
Yeah.
I just find it I find it a privilege, and I think that the having this opportunity to work on this is my way of correcting our not knowing about what happened to these children there.
You're doing outstanding work because I'm a huge
Oh,
fan of your work, and
thank
I,
you.
I get in my hands everything that you do. And thank you so much for your time and congratulations. It's an outstanding movie. I still have it in my stomach. It's been hard for me even to sit down and write something because I don't know what to write yet. So I
Mm,
need to process a little bit more because it's a really deep and great movie.
thank you for watching it. I appreciate that.
I truly love the movie, and I think your chemistry it's perfect. This movie is about violence, it's about so many things, but it's also about friendship. How do you build this beautiful friendship?
How would you build a friendship in life? I think it happens naturally, and I think we were fortunate enough that our friendship also happened naturally. We just met, and it was easy for us to connect and to share and to be comfortable with one another. And so from there, it builds of its own accord, and we don't have to do any heavy lifting.
Heavy lifting is sometimes good.
It could
Where
be, I mean, yeah, you look strong.
a little bit. One of the things that I love about the movie, it's at the first you don't have too many dialogues, and then we start watching on first person everything. And I wonder how was that relationship with the camera? We have one POV, then we change to another one, then we have something floating behind the character in the future. And I wonder how was that relationship working with a cinematographer?
Yeah, yeah, Jomo Frey, he does really phenomenal work on this movie. And physically, it was whoever was off camera. So say it was, from Elwood's point of view, I would be off camera. And if we're in a scene together, I would be huddled like right next to whoever the camera operator might be, whether that's Jomo or Ramel or sometimes Sam. We would just be right up against each other. I think on those first few days, it was established pretty quickly that, Jomo and I and eventually Jomo and Brendan were going to be pretty close throughout the shoot.
How familiar you guys were with the material before you got the script? Did you know about the story about Nickel Boy? If it's something changed that you learned something new about history about racism?
I didn't have any prior knowledge. Neither of us had any prior knowledge about the book or about the Dozier School for Boys in Florida, which Nickel Boys is based off of. I can't say that I learned anything new about racism.
Not necessarily everything that you would kind of expect that kind of during that time period. Unfortunately, was the case. But learning about that place and the horrors that took place, it's whenever you learn about something like that, there are a few different feelings and reactions. But the one that really sat with me was, how did I not know about this before? Why wasn't this something that was available to me maybe in school? If we want to move in a positive direction and towards progress, the first step is being able to know about things like this so that we can step forward and start to have serious conversations about it.
How do you build your characters? Because it's based on a book, then it's created in a script. And how's it gonna behave? Because one is so serious, Ellsworth is so serious, so tight, and then your character is so relaxed. The way you meet in the hospital, just feel so relaxed. It's the opposite. It's like a yin yang. And I wonder how was created. It was in a conversation with Ramell, or they gave you free, or he gave you freedom to create those characters.
Lots and lots of freedom. But I mean, Colson Whitehead wrote the book. Ramel and Jocelyn wrote the script. So I mean, there's already so much groundwork laid out for the characters.
Yeah, I agree. And it was really, we had all the kind of tools and all the access to discover who these characters were. It was just about finding how to connect and then portray and embody. And so Ramel gave us the freedom to do that, and whatever he saw and what we brought, he was all for. That's something that we were able to kind of explore and, creatively do on our own. And Ramel just really helped kind of guide that friendship that you see evolve throughout the movie.
What do you expect that the audience learn and take away from this movie, from this history? Do you expect that they became more curious? How do you expect that the movie land on them?
Yeah, I hope they become more curious about the, real life story of the real life Dozier School for Boys. And then as it pertains to the movie, I hope that they lose themselves in the world and allow themselves to become fully immersed and just let go of themselves and just live in this space. And then I hope that they continue to consider everything that they felt and experienced long after the movie is ended and talk about it with other people.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect. I think we have had the opportunity to talk to people, audience members, right after seeing it after certain screenings, and so many different interactions, and people have so many different reactions to seeing the film and the emotions that they share and the stories that they share with you afterwards. I don't know, there's something beautiful that there's a vulnerability that a lot of people have approached us with after seeing the film that I didn't expect. And not to say that I expect it from here on out, but it's just knowing that that's a possibility that someone can be affected in that way and feel inspired to go share.
For me, at first, the first 20 minutes of the movie, it hit me hard because it just bringing back when I was a kid. That I approached my mom to see if she was fine, she was still breathing, and no dialogues and everything. My last question for you guys is, what was your first thought when you finished watching the movie for the first time?
Been saying this, and this was my experience. I mean, when when the credits started to roll and I saw my name and I saw Brandon's name, I started crying. I was so deeply invested in the world and so kind of immersed in it that I didn't kind of realize. Usually, when you're watching yourself in something, you're aware that it's you that you're seeing on screen, but for whatever reason, I just whenever I saw my face, there was some sort of I didn't realize it was me. And so saw those names and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the movie that we were in. This is this incredible thing that we were a part of. Yeah, there were a lot of feelings of pride and joy that we were able to be a part of something so special and beautiful. And then there was just this feeling in my stomach that I didn't know how to talk about and to put into words. It was a mixture of so many things of devastation and pain. I was also able to consider all of the beauty that I had seen. It was also so much to to process after that initial watch, on top of being proud to have been a part of it.
But my only thought was like, why do I feel so vulnerable? Because like I didn't feel like I had such a direct the first time watching it, I didn't feel like I had such a direct emotional experience during the watch. The second time I did.
Mm.
But the first time I didn't notice any like direct emotional response. But afterwards, yeah, I just felt like if somebody says the wrong thing to me or looks at me the wrong way, like I'm just gonna start crying. Like,
Yeah.
I just felt so like fragile and kind of tender afterwards. So very few thoughts, just a lot of feeling.
Ethan, Brandon, congratulations, man. Outstanding
Thank you.
work.
Thank you
Outstanding.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.